Is it time to panic for Indiana basketball recruiting?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 to get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Well, thank you so much for being here again, making this your first listen every single day. Start of a new week as we get closer to football and basketball. And shout out to you, my everydayers, for being here each and every day. Is it time to panic for Indiana basketball recruiting for 2025 since we saw a big-time target go to a different school and it just seems like we need to catch up a little bit? We're going to talk about that today, plus how there are just hot and cold streaks in recruiting, plus which recruits are hot and which ones are cold in terms of Indiana. Plus, we now know the non-conference schedule for Indiana women's basketball. We'll have that for you in our final segment later on the show. Is it time to panic for Indiana basketball in recruiting? As an Indiana fan, should you be worried? Should you be concerned when you see guys like Malachi Moreno commit to Kentucky? Should you be worried? Is it time to panic? No, it's not. It's not time to panic at all. Why? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. I know that we had an episode last week about Moreno, and there was a clip I had that said, what if he shocks the world, right? What if he decides to come to Indiana rather than go to Mark Pope in Kentucky? Well, it really seemed that same day is when things took a turn, and it was pretty well known that he was going to end up committing to Big Blue Nation. And you know what? It's fine. Does it hurt? Sure, it absolutely does. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that it doesn't hurt that one of your big recruits goes somewhere else. Oh, we didn't want him anyway. Whatever. Good luck. No, we're not going to act that way because he is a really good player and he just committed to a really good program. But Indiana fans, listen to me right now. It's okay. It is okay. Do not worry. Do not stress, and do not panic. Why? Because there's a long way to go. There's a long way to go on so many other big names that we're going after. If you want to start at the center position, right, you want to start with the big man that the Hoosiers have made known they want to go out and get somebody in 2025. It goes back to who we talked about on Friday, Eric Reeby. That's the guy that Indiana has now focused their attention to, and rightfully so. You still have other names floating around out there, but I think this is the guy that we have now said, okay, let's go full throttle. Let's get him on campus, which that seems to be a good feeling right now, and let's see where it goes. And so in terms of a center, no, do not be worried or concerned. I don't think, however, and I do want to say this, based off of conversations that I've had, I don't think the Hoosiers are going to reach and stoop extremely low for a center in 2025. They want one, and it's no secret, but they're not just going to go get one to say they did. If they don't like him, if he doesn't fit, if he's not highly ranked. I do believe in that statement. So keep that in mind here. If the Hoosiers strike out 2 or 3 more times, then they may just, they may just take their losses and move in and find one like they've done the last couple of years through the transfer portal. And we're going to see if that trend can continue and see if that continues to work out. Khalil Ware, now Umar Ballo, and maybe that's what the Hoosiers do moving forward. So keep that in mind in terms of recruiting a high school center. But there are so many other players that we're still in on, that we are in their top 5. Most people say top 3, and have a really good shot at landing and being here in Bloomington and becoming an Indiana Hoosier. And so with all of that, that's what I'm telling you. Don't stress. It's okay. Now, with Moreno in particular, again, yeah, it sucks to see him go to Kentucky, right? But it happens. That's recruiting. You're not going to get them all, believe it or not. You're not going to get them all. But I do believe we're going to get quite a few of them. And it still is a good feeling about 2025, whether it's the coaches you hear from, other players, recruiting guys. Like, there are people that still believe Indiana's going to clean house and do a really good job in 2025. So you then may ask, okay, when is the correct time to panic, Jacob? When should we start to be concerned? I think if you get through the month of October and you've missed out on the Braylon Mullins of the world and the Trent Sisleys of the world and guys like that who a lot of them, we don't know when they want to commit. Some have said September, October. Some have said later than that. But if you start seeing these guys get off the board early and either not take their Indiana visits or just commit somewhere else, and we've gone into the season starting already, then yeah, that is the time to panic. That's the time to start being concerned and saying, uh-oh, right? Because we've seen this story before, and it's been well documented, and it's not a new idea by any means, that a lot of these guys just want to see teams play. They want to see the Hoosiers get the season started. They want to see UConn play a little bit, and they want to see Kentucky, and they want to see Kansas. Like, they want to see these teams in action a little bit just to give them a better idea, give them a little bit more, not ammunition, but basis, grounds for their decision, whatever words you kind of want to use right there. They just want to see it, and you can't really blame them for that, right? So keep that in mind too. If the season does start and there's no commitments, maybe start to be a little concerned. If you see them start to go other places, then that's a really big time or a really big sign to be concerned. Do I think that happens? No. I think we're still in a good spot for some of those names that I just mentioned, and we'll hit on a couple of more coming up in the next segment when talking about hot and cold in recruiting, but it's okay. That's the basis of this today, is to just say, chill out. It's okay. And I say that in a nice way. It's not like saying, hey, calm down, right? We're good. Everything's fine. Everything is fine. The Hoosiers are good. We have a good team, a good roster. We're still in a really good spot for a lot of 2025 guys, which seems to be a really crucial class for the history of this current coaching regime, right? It just seems like 2025, there's been so much stock put into this where it has to work out. And I agree. I think it does. I think this has to be a big class for us, and I still believe that it will be. Coming up on Locked On Hoosiers, we'll talk some more about those 2025 guys. Who's hot on the boards right now for Indiana? Who's maybe not so hot? And there's also hot and cold streaks just in terms of recruiting in general. We'll have that for you coming up next on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, goodness, all FanDuel customers can bet $5. All right, so bet $5 and you get a 3 free week trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV, which is fantastic, by the way. I have that. And you got to try it out. If FanDuel is going to give it to you for 3 weeks free with a $5 bet. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Join us, so visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your first listen each and every day. Shout out to all of my everydayers because you guys are showing up. I really appreciate that. And it's starting to catch on, starting to take notice for the people upstairs. So keep doing your thing, all right? And I appreciate you doing that. And a reminder that this show is free every day, Monday through Friday, audio, video, however you get it. It's always free. to you. So if you're looking for an easy and free way to support the show and help us out, audio listeners, follow us on that app or that website, whatever platform you're on, and turn on notifications. If you're on YouTube, the video version, like this video, comment down below, which 2025 recruits do you think the Hoosiers end up landing? Who do you think it's going to be? Is it Mullins? Is it Sisley? Is it Ament? Is it Reeby? Who is it going to be in 2025? Comment down below and tell me who you think that's going to be. And then the best way to support us, hit our logo and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We continue to grow. We're growing like crazy. So thank you so much for that. And my everydayers, you're a big reason for that. Well, who is hot and who's cold in terms of recruiting? And there's two ways I want to go with this conversation. I'm talking players and then just hot and cold streaks as a program, because that happens so often. And I want to start right there because think about this. There is no program in the country, none. I don't care if you're thinking Duke, UConn, Indiana, North Carolina, doesn't matter. There is not a single program in this entire country that is always hot in recruiting. There are streaks, there are ups, and there are downs. You think you're really good with one player, and then he commits somewhere else the next day. You think you have nothing going for you, that you're in a dry spell, and you just can't land anything. All of a sudden, you send out a feeler, and the guy's interested, and he shows up for an official visit, or an unofficial visit, right? It goes in waves, the ups and downs, the roller coaster effect, if you will. And honestly, I'm not saying that Indiana's either hot or cold. I think we're kind of right there in the middle because we're still in on so many players. And sure, we've missed out on a couple, and that's okay. That's going to happen. Again, you're not going to get them all. But I don't want you to start worrying and panicking right now because it's not time to do that yet. Because while it maybe could be going better, it definitely could be going worse. And we've seen that over the last handful of seasons. And I've seen you guys talk about that in the YouTube comments, how it has to be better in 2025. And I totally agree. But now it's time to get hot if you're Mike Woodson and this Hoosier staff, which is where I'm heading with this. It's time to get hot and get on a roll because it's such the most basic term, but it's the domino effect, right? It's the one everybody's been using since the beginning of time, it seems like. If you get one, more will follow. It's a natural thing in recruiting, in transfer portal, whatever the case may be. The domino effect is a real thing. You land a Braylon Mullins, and then all of a sudden, the world takes notice. The country goes, whoa, okay, Indiana pulled it off. You know who else that reacts that way? Other recruits. Other recruits see that, and they take notice. And they start thinking, maybe they know something I don't. Maybe I should go there too because I've got them in my top 5. I've already been on a visit, or my visit is coming up. I was thinking about maybe not going, but maybe now I'll check it out. You see where I'm going with all of this? It's all feeds off of one another. And so right now, it's time for the Hoosiers to get hot. You're not cold, but you're not hot. And if you're not going forward, you're just going backwards. So that's where the Hoosiers are at right now. And so with all of that, some of these names that we've continued to talk about, Eric Reeby, Braylon Mullins, right? Don't forget about Jalen Harrelson, who is going to be taking a visit as well. You have Michael Brown. You have all sorts of these players. I mentioned Trent Sisley, even Bryson Tiller, right? I mean, all of these guys that we have continued to talk about. And I'll give you my quick, just kind of hot and cold on those guys. And what's in between hot and cold? I mean, is it lukewarm? Room temperature? There we go. Let's go with room temperature. That's going to be our terminology here, okay? Bryson Tiller. I believe room temperature here. I really do. I think room temperature on Bryson Tiller, the 6'9" forward from Overtime Elite. I'm going with room temperature because, again, not cold, but not hot. And I think that's going to be a pretty consistent feeling throughout this list. I've got them all written down, so I'm reading them off for you here. Trent Sisley, I think you're hot. I think you are doing extremely well. You've got his visit coming up in, about a month or so now, that he'll be on campus. And so I'm supposed to be here with Braylon Mullins. He was supposed to be here with Moreno too, but we saw how that went. But I'm going to say hot on Trent Sisley. Jalen Harrelson, same way. I'm going to put him and Braylon Mullins in the same category of, I think you're on their tail right now. You are all over them, putting in basically every chip you have on these two hands and saying, let's see what you got. Because with Harrelson, again, he's coming for his visit in literally less than 2 weeks now for the season opener for football. We've told you about the player reunion that's going to be happening for Indiana basketball as well. The Hoosiers are all in on him. And if you get him, great. If not, it's a big strike, big swing and a miss here for the Hoosiers. But I think you're hot on Jalen Harrelson right now. I also think you're hot on Braylon Mullins. And there's so much discussion right now with Braylon Mullins about, is he the best shooting guard? Could he be the best shooter in the class? Where's he going to go? He could be a one and done. Like, there are all sorts of storylines and topics and attention-grabbing reads and headlines and things like that out there, right? And Braylon Mullins is one of the hottest names in this 2025 class. What has benefited us, and this is not the first time I've told you this, my everydayers know this. What benefits the Hoosiers and Mike Woodson when it comes to Braylon Mullins, they've been on him early and they've been on him often. They have not stopped bugging this kid in a good way. And they are in the core group for Braylon Mullins. We will be there on the day he decides. Whether he chooses us or not, I don't know. But in the metaphorical hat choosing process, Indiana's will be right there, front and center. All he's got to do is put it on. You know what I'm saying? That's where we stand with Braylon Mullins. We're getting him on campus. I believe. I have no reason to think it's not going to happen to this point. And his stock continues to rise. And there are times that could maybe hurt us. Sure, because of how well a UConn visit went or how other programs are going to do whatever they can just to get a conversation with the guy, just to go and see him at his school or try to get an in-home visit or try to get him on their campus. I mean, everybody is going bananas over this kid because of how good he is. But the Hoosiers are hot right here. All right, so a couple of lukewarms, couple of hots. Is there anybody that I missed? I don't think so for now. Eric Reeby, I'm going to say lukewarm too. It has a chance we're getting warmer as we go, especially now that we're not going after Moreno since he is committed to Kentucky now. And so that's where I stand on a lot of those guys. So you can see what I'm talking about here. The Hoosiers are in on a lot of them. It's just time to take that next step. It's time to go from room temperature to boiling hot. If you do that, you're going to land quite a few of them. If you let other people pass you by, then they're going to go to somewhere else. And then we're going to have the same conversations that we did last spring, last early winter of, well, who in the world are we bringing in through the high school ranks? Glad we've got one, maybe, right? You remember those conversations? Those aren't very fun. And I don't want to have those again. And you don't want to hear those again. So while it's not time to panic right now, if you don't start getting hot on the recruiting trail, if you're Indiana, we may be having similar conversations like we did a year ago. Well, coming up on our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers, talking about the women's team for just a few minutes because we now know their non-conference schedule. It got released a few days ago. Want to run through that quickly with you, give you some of my immediate reactions. We'll have that for you in our final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Final segment here on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again so much for being here, making this your first listen each and every day. If you're looking for your second watch or your second listen each and every day, I've got 2 recommendations for you as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, okay? First of all, go check out Locked On College Football. Spencer does a wonderful job, and it's week 0 of college football, so go check him out right now. As soon as you're done here, just search Locked On College Football. He's got all the biggest storylines, all the biggest headlines you need to get ready for week 0 of college football. Isn't that a crazy statement? Your third listen today needs to be Locked On College Basketball. Isaac and Andy do a phenomenal job over there. They talk a lot of Indiana. They're talking a lot of recruiting, UConn and Kansas and the Braylon Mullins of the world, okay? So go check them out as well. Locked On Hoosiers first, Locked On College Football second because of week 0, and then Locked On College Basketball as we got a little bit more time. So go check all that out for me. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the Indiana women's non-conference schedule because it has been released and we know what that's going to look like. And I'm excited for this. I really, really am. It may not be the most crazy non-conference schedule in the world. And unfortunately, we've had to say that about the men's schedule too. But there are a couple of highlights in here that I want to hit on. So starting on November 4th, you have a game against Brown. That'll be here in Bloomington. Harvard comes to town a few days later here in Bloomington. On the road, November 13th at Butler. It's going to be in Indy. So how fun is that going to be? That's a really cool game. You then play Stanford right here in Bloomington. I know some will be hype about it. Some won't be. I think that's pretty cool. I think Stanford coming across the country to play that game will be really, really neat. The women's team, November 23rd through the 25th, will be competing in the Battle for Atlantis. So really, really cool for this Indiana's team and Terry Morin to go down to the Bahamas and play in the Battle for Atlantis. Then they'll come home on December 1st versus Maine. They will then play Southern Indiana here in Bloomington, Bellarmine here in Bloomington, and then Oakland will be here at home as well. So again, it may not be the craziest. Non-conference schedule. They do have an exhibition on October 30th. That is against Maryville. But other than that, it is what it is. And to give you an idea on who's in that Battle for Atlantis on the women's side, it is Ball State, Columbia, Southern Miss, Baylor, North Carolina, Texas A&M, and Villanova. We don't know who we're playing yet, but that's just to give you an idea of what that's going to be like. So you'll play a combination of those teams somehow, just like the men do in their different tournaments, right? Atlantis and the Maui and things like that. So overall, I like it. I think it's a fun schedule. I think it's a very manageable schedule. And for a team that, yes, has lost a lot, but has brought in a lot of talent this coming year too, it's a good test. It's a good middle ground of will be challenging enough, but will allow this team to kind of get their feet underneath them and feel things out before the season gets going. And look, I can't wait to cover the men and the women's team again on this show like we did a year ago. And who knows what is going to happen because, like I said, this women's team is a combination of experience and young talent. So we'll see. We'll see wouldn't it be awesome if both teams can make a run in March this year, get to the tournament and make runs in the NCAA. I love it. I hope we can have something like that for you right here on Locked On Hoosiers. We're going to cover the best we can. There ain't no doubt about it. We will cover both of these programs extremely heavily, the men's team, the women's team, football as well, and all of that because this is Locked On Hoosiers, and we're excited to bring that for you. In basketball, while it may be the start of football season, basketball is not too far behind. And so, again, the non-conference schedule was released for Indiana women. Brown, Harvard, Butler, Stanford, Battle for Atlantis, Maine, Southern Indiana, Bellarmine, and Oakland from November 4th through December 22nd. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here, and shout out to all of my everydayers. I say this all the time, but your support is so appreciated here, okay? It really, really is. So thank you for that. Be sure you come back tomorrow, okay? We continue to preview countdown for football, more recruiting news in basketball, and as I always say, you never know what's going to happen. All right, have a great week. Have a great Monday. We'll be back tomorrow. So until then, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.